Hey, besties, welcome to a new episode of The Nurse Aspect where we assess and evaluate. I'm your host, Nurse Becca, and today we have a virtual episode with Nurse Margaret. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing? Thank you for
I'm
having me.
good. Thank you for being on the show. You're the first virtual guest. This is so exciting.
Yay! I'm excited.
So, for those of you who don't know, Margaret recently posted a TikTok that went viral about how she hates nursing. And so we're kind of here to hear your journey. So, why'd you get into nursing, first of all?
I got into nursing. I because of my parents, honestly, they were really selling it hard for me. I was considering going to school to be a pediatrician, and they were really like, "We don't think that's the best journey for you. It's a lot of school. It's going to put you in a lot of debt, and you really don't like school, and you really like motivated to make money." And there was a good nursing school like about 15 minutes from my childhood home, so my parents really like sold me on it over and over. They're like, do this, do this. You'll actually work with the patients in the nursing. And once I kind of looked into it, I was like, you know what? They're right. Like, I don't want to go to school for 8 years and then have to do a residency before I'll actually be working. And so after like some consideration, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to nursing school. And once I decided that, I was like, I'm going to be a NICU nurse. And it was just, that was where I went.
Now, did you go right into NICU?
No, I actually started in the emergency room while I was in nursing school. I got a job at the children's hospital where I was living, and I just wanted to get my foot in the door so that I could become a NICU nurse. And I was in the children's ER, and I actually fell in love with it. I was like, I had never even considered emergency room, it wasn't even on my mind. And then once I was there, I was like, oh, wait, I actually really like this. And after I graduated, I ended up going to a different hospital so that I could try emergency room with adults and pediatric patients and not just be on the pediatric side. And I really fell in love with it. I had a knack for that fast paced environment, and I, can be really calm in really stressful situations. So it really ended up being a good fit for a few years.
Okay. So you were there for a while before you went to NICU?
Yeah, I was there for about 3 years, and then I started to get a little burnt out. And I always told myself that I didn't want to be a jaded nurse. Like when you get into nursing and you've seen the nurses that have been there for 10, 15, 20 years, some nurses can be a little jaded. They don't have the empathy and the compassion for the patients that they're taking care of. It becomes more of a job. And I always said I never wanted to be that nurse. So if I ever felt myself like feeling that way, that I would transfer to a different environment. And after about 3 years in a trauma center, I was a little like, okay, I'm getting to that point and I don't want to be that way. So let me go try what I originally wanted to do, which was NICU. And so I transferred to a sister hospital with the company that I worked with, and they had a NICU position, and I fell in love with it. It was one of those jobs where I had like a great team. I love taking care of the babies, and I really thought that I was gonna like live and die in that NICU for the rest of my life.
Live and die. I will say, I feel like a lot of people working in specialties, especially like labor and delivery, NICU, I feel like those specialties, like you end up finding older nurses that have been working there since 1901, and they do live and die there. So I totally get it. So what happened?
Well, we had a change in management and it kind of really tore our entire unit apart. We had a assistant nurse manager come in who, she was fine at first, and then our manager ended up leaving. So when the assistant nurse manager became acting manager until they found a new one, she really started, using her power to kind of put down her employees. Everybody was kind of getting written up. And then because people were getting written up for silly things and getting frustrated, then it became this whole like tattletaling. So the nurses were, well, I got in trouble for this, so I'm going to tell on you because, you scanned this late or what, just little things that it kind of just changed the whole culture. Whereas before everybody was happy and we came in, we did our job. You know, I mean, you have days where it's not perfect or whatever, little things that are frustrating, but the whole culture of the unit really changed when she started acting as manager. Which was really frustrating. And like during that time, I even wanted to transfer to a different NICU. But I actually got blocked from doing that after I interviewed because she wrote me up for being late by
That's
1 minute for like
that's crazy.
four times. And like, it's like you can only be late four times or three times in a certain amount of time. And they were like, oh, you clocked in at 6:51 three times in this time. So now we're going to write you up and block you from transferring. And so it just really was not a fun environment. And it wasn't just like me. I felt like personally I was the one getting picked on, but it wasn't just me. Other people were getting kind of harassed and bullied by her, including one of our charge nurses who we really, really loved and really respected. She'd been there for over 5 years. She went above and beyond for not only the babies and the families, but for her staff. I mean, she was really someone who was going to celebrate every single person. And she ended up getting bullied so bad by this assistant nurse manager that she left. And when she left, a lot of us in solidarity were like, we don't want to continue working for somebody who is going to bully somebody that we really love and respect and valued as a leader. You know, when you really have a charge nurse or somebody in leadership that you value and love, and to watch them be broken down by somebody above them, it was just really hard.
I mean, what was the hospital's response? Like, was administration ever involved, like a supervisor, anything that was just like, let's take a look at the culture of the unit? Was there any type of response?
Not really. I mean, we tried to bring it up several times. And there was a point where the director of women's services actually, because we as staff were like, this assistant nurse manager, when she is acting as manager, has changed the culture, has made us feel bullied. We're not excited to come to work. We're scared that, we're constantly going to get in trouble. We're walking on eggshells. And so, a couple of us went to HR. We tried to go above her to the director of women's services. And basically, the director of women's services was just on her side. So, and
Wow.
nothing really changed. They were just like, it is what it is. This is how it's going to be. You guys have to like just deal with it essentially. And it was one of those things where I felt like I needed to say something. And there was a staff meeting before I ended up leaving that I, spoke up, and they're talking about all these different, like, uh, I don't know, like initiatives or whatever to kind of change the culture and want people to be happy. And I was like, it's very concerning that our charge nurse is quitting and half of our night staff is leaving. Like, why are you guys not concerned about this? And all that led to was me getting blacklisted from ever being able to work in that NICU again. It didn't change the culture. It didn't change anything that happened. It just put a punishment on me for trying to advocate for my team and my staff.
That's so unfortunate. Like sometimes it sucks because it's like that's one of the pillars of nursing is being an advocate, like not only for your
Hmm.
patients, but for yourself as well. And not to be like for it to be done in like a rude way or anything like that. But when you do stick up and then there's a retaliation for you to be blacklisted now, it's like this is going in a place where all I'm trying to do is stick up for myself in the unit where there's obviously an issue and no one is doing anything about it. That's so unfortunate. How long
Yeah.
did that last?
I was in that NICU for about 4 years. Probably the first
Wow.
2 years were pretty okay. But it was the last 2 years that it was like really, really hard. And after I got blocked from being able to transfer, you have to wait a year before you can and like let those write-ups like fall off of your like
A
chart.
year?
Yeah, so I was kind of
Wow.
stuck in, not like stuck because I did still have my team and like, we would try to work together as best as we could, but it ended up being like after that year that's when things really started getting bad. And when my charge nurse, because she was one of those people like, like, oh, I'm going to quit, just kind of joking or whatever. And when it really came down to it, she was like, no, I'm really leaving. Like, some things have happened and things have been said to me that are not okay and I don't feel good about, and I just can't work here anymore. A bunch of us stepped up and we were just like, well, we're leaving too. Like, we don't want to be here if you're not here, because we just loved and respected her so much. And she had given so much of herself and her life to that unit. I mean, she really, truly was an amazing NICU nurse. Not even just an amazing NICU nurse, just an amazing person. And so I've seen, like, throughout my nursing journey, when there's a change and you have a charge nurse or someone in leadership that you really value and respect, and they make a quick change, that's always been a sign to me that things are not going well and things are not going to get better, because you already have this person in leadership who's working with management, or working closer with management and administration. And if they're feeling some type of way, a lot of times that means things are not going to get better for the rest of the staff.
Yeah, that's so sad. So sad that
Yeah.
you hear that. So where'd you go after NICU then? Or did you
So
try another NICU?
I
Like,
didn't, because I had tried to transfer to that one NICU and that didn't work out. I felt weird, like I felt weird about it, because it was like I had interviewed and it went well, and then it was like I got blocked by that write-up. So I felt weird about trying to apply there again, because I didn't want it to seem like I had issues with discipline. I was kind of just off that. So I ended up going back to the emergency room. So I transferred
oh,
back to the emergency room because it was what I knew. It was like a quick change. I kind of wasn't sure of what I wanted to do or where I was going. So I transferred back to the emergency room, and I enjoyed it for a time. But emergency room is just, it's a lot and it's
it's the
overwhelming.
bowels of the hospital. Boy, do I know. The ED is not a joke. Like, shout out to all the ED nurses. I have never been an ED nurse. I literally, I used to say like I would want to go into the ED, and
Mhm.
then I couldn't get in. I ended up in like tele, but I would get report from ED nurses all the time, and I'm like, oh God, ED nurses on the phone. So I don't know how y'all do it. So shout out to you guys.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think a lot of ED nurses have like a love-hate relationship with it. It's like you love the fast pace, you love the fact that like you're not seeing the same patients for all 12 hours typically. I mean, every now and
Right.
then you will, but for the most part, it's like go, go, go. You're seeing so many different things. You're pulled from here and here. But things just were the dynamic there. It was also a charge nurse was leaving. And it just became like unsafe. Like there were so many things that were happening where like the patient ratios were crazy. They were putting more on people that couldn't handle it. Like we had pretty much all travelers. So like there was nobody that was like core staff. And at
Yeah.
that time, for me personally, what ultimately led me to leaving the emergency room and also bedside at the same time was I was having some personal issues like with family and stuff that was really stressing me out. And I had went to my manager because I was primarily one of the people that was training the travelers or the new nurses or taking the students that were coming in, which I enjoy doing. I like teaching. I like, being able to be real with the people that I'm talking to and showing them like this is how things are, this is how we do it, and just kind of also building up. Like I always like to build up the nursing students and like give them the chance to do it, because a lot of times when you have like a student, nurses don't want to let them do stuff. But
Mhm.
I wanted to, I'm like, no, you do it. They would be scared, and I'm like, you can do it, go ahead, like I'm right here, you're not going to mess it up, like I'm not going to let you make a mistake or whatever. And really trying to build up other people, because I really did enjoy being a nurse for a long time, despite the TikTok that I made. Like, I really enjoy being of service and caregiving. And so I wanted to build up the people that I was training. But at that particular time, I was dealing with a lot of stuff. And so I went to my manager and I was like, hey, I'm dealing with a lot of stuff. Like, I just can't be taking on all this extra work. I just really need to come in and do my job and leave. Like, you're going to have to find somebody else who can like train these travelers or new nurses or students, because I just don't have the capacity to do it. Like I was really just saying like my mental health is not well, and they were like, okay, we'll do our best. And they did not. They kept putting on, I mean, there was one shift I came in and two different nurses reported to me because I was supposed to be training this one and this one. And I went to the charge nurse and I
Oh,
said, I can't train two people. Like I don't even really have the
that's
capacity to
crazy.
train one, but now I've got two people staring at me saying, we're paired up with you. And they,
Hmm.
and we had this nurse come in and she was going to be a new staff nurse, and the manager begged me. She was like, she's an experienced emergency room nurse, she's going to be a staff nurse, like you just have to take her for like 6 shifts and teach her like our way of doing things, like our policy, make sure she knows how to use like Epic and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I get this nurse, and she was not an experienced emergency room nurse. It was very clear from the first hour I was with her that she was not an experienced emergency room nurse. She had like fibbed about how much how much experience she had had. And so I went to the manager and I was like, "Hey, I like she's not experienced. I can't teach her like this specialty. Like she really needs like an extended orientation because she does not have this experience, and like I can't teach her all these little things of how the emergency room works." Like it ended up she was working from dialysis. So to take a
Oh, totally
dialysis,
different.
yeah, so to take a dialysis nurse and put her in the ER and like teach her how, because I would never be able to just go to dialysis and know how to work that machine.
I could press the power button. That's all I got for you.
Literally, that's like all
Yeah.
I could do. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I would never go into a specialty and like say, but she had worked as an EMT at some point. But that's so different
It's
because
different.
you
Yeah.
only have one patient at a time on your
Right.
truck. You're only caring for one. Now we have a team of 4 to 5 or
Hmm.
3 to 5, depending on, the acuity of
Wait,
what's
that's
going
the ratio in Florida? It's three to
on.
five?
In Georgia, if for ER, it's like 3 to 5, depending on like one nurse to 3 patients or one nurse to 5 patients, depending on the acuity of what's going on.
Oh, that's different. New York is totally different.
What's it in New York?
New York's a little more than that. It's usually like it's usually like 6 to 8.
Well, that would be on the floor, but in the
Mhm.
emergency room, the ratios are a little bit different. So, like in
Even
the
in
hospital,
the ED, it's like 6.
wow,
Yeah.
wow, that makes me actually feel like, wow, I had it easy.
All right, continue.
But like I said, so it was like it's very different to have one patient on a truck versus like having 4 to 5 patients that you're trying to manage in the emergency room, and it's go go go. I mean, you could have one patient with something serious going on, and then all of a sudden an ambulance is waiting to drop off their patient, or sometimes they would just drop them off and you wouldn't even know they were in there. They're not registered, they're not hooked up to a monitor. You go in, I'm like, are you breathing? I don't even know what's your name,
Right.
so you have all that dynamics. And so I went to the manager and I was like, I can't take this nurse. Like I don't have the capacity to teach in this way. Like I could have handled if she could already know how to manage a team and, manage her time and do these things, but I just don't have this capacity. And they basically said, we don't have anybody else. You have to do it. Like you just
Now,
have to.
were you the only like senior nurse at the time or?
I wasn't the only senior nurse, but I was all the senior nurses that were staff at that point were refusing. So I was the only one that was, even though I was trying to refuse, they were still
Yeah.
like, you have to do it.
Hmm.
Um, and it became the night that actually made me put in my 2 week notice without a plan of just saying, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, was a night where they had put me and this nurse that I continued to take until I quit. Um, in our acute psych area, which is already, an area. So you want to be mindful that you're in that area and, because anything can happen. I mean, you
Right.
could be assaulted, it could be very chill. Sometimes everybody's asleep at night and it's a chill space to be in. And other times, everybody's popping off, they're feeding off each other's energy. You got patients trying to run, different things are
Mhm.
going on. And they also made me hold the trauma phone and wanted me to leave if a trauma came in, leave the acute psych area, leave and go respond to the trauma while also taking care of this nurse. And I was fighting with the charge nurse at the beginning of the day. I said, I cannot hold this trauma phone, train her, and be in the psych area. It's not safe. It's not okay. I can't leave her. I don't trust her to be able to manage these patients. And I also can't leave them and respond to a trauma that could take me 2 hours, depending on what was going on.
Right.
And she basically, and it was still, we don't have anybody else. That was every time I was trying to advocate and say, I can't, this is not okay, this is not safe. They said that we don't have anybody else. And so I held the trauma phone. We went into the psych area and we had an overdose patient who had been Narcaned probably a couple times before she was by EMS. And then we were having to Narcan her. So we Narcaned her. All of a sudden I get a call, there's a burn coming in, because we were a trauma and a burn center. So there's a burn coming in. I have to go respond to the burn. And I'm telling this nurse, I'm like, okay, this patient is okay. This patient is okay. This patient is okay. I told the other nurses in that area, I said, I have to go to this burn. I'm concerned about this one patient because we've Narcaned her multiple times already, but I have to go to this burn. Please, be mindful, watch out. I'm nervous about this patient. So I go to the burn and I take care of the burn patient. We get the burn patient transferred to the burn center or the burn unit. I come back and I go, how is everything? And all of a sudden I start hearing snoring respirations out of my ear. And I go, is that patient? And the nurse that I was training goes, oh yeah, that's that patient. I think she has sleep apnea because she's been snoring really loud. And I stand up and I said, come with me. And I was like, this is not sleep apnea. This is snoring respirations because she's not maintaining her airway. I did a sternal rub, completely unresponsive. And I was like, look, this patient is unresponsive. She's not maintaining her airway. At the moment, she is maintaining her stats, but this snoring respiration is something that you need to be mindful of her not maintaining her airway. We have already Narcaned her multiple times, and we didn't know how much drug she consumed before she got here. So we have to be mindful of this. And she was like, oh, I didn't know. And so I'm immediately like, okay, we have to go get the Narcan and wake this lady up. But it was just so this is just so unsafe because she was just sitting there oh, she has sleep apnea. And I kept telling my managers, I'm like, she needs an orientation. And I'm telling you, I can't give it to her. And I felt bad because I was losing my patience a little bit with this nurse that she did not deserve necessarily, but also I've been trying to tell people I don't have the capacity to take care of this. And after that night, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm overwhelmed. I'm so stressed. I've been trying to advocate for myself. All I get told is that we have nobody else. So I said, you know what? I'm going to put in my 2 weeks notice and then they will have to figure it out because I won't be there. They're going to have to find somebody else because I'm not even going to be here anymore. And that's what happened. I ended up quitting. I put in my 2 weeks notice, and after that I left and I had no job to go to, no plan to do. I was just like, I need a break. And I've been trying to figure out my life since then, and that was almost 2 years ago.
So I'm glad that you actually stuck up for yourself because a lot of people would kind of just either tough it out. I feel like lately some people would kind of just leave with just a no call, no show, I'm just not coming back. I'm glad that you at least gave a 2 weeks notice, and mentally, it's important for us to take care of ourselves. If you're not getting a break and, things are so much, you're so burnt out, I'm happy that you at least did that for yourself, but I know you said that you haven't it's been 2 years, but what are you doing now? Or have you done anything nursing wise since?
Yeah, since I took a break for a little bit, I had been with that company for a while, so they cashed out my PTO to me, which was a nice chunk of change. So I just took a break because I was just like, I need a breather. And I went and worked at an IV hydration station that I had worked for previously when I first became a nurse, and I wanted a side hustle and I was really trying to make all that money. When you first get out of nursing school, you're like, all the overtime, everything,
all the cash.
Exactly. And so I had worked there and, it's pretty easy. The money wasn't great, but it was an easy side gig. So I was like, well, let me go back to this and make a little bit money and kind of just see what I want to do. Like maybe I just need some time away from bedside to recover from burnout. I did that. The owner of that company just was not a very nice human being. And so I ended up leaving. And then at that point, I really was like, I really don't want to be a nurse now. Like, not even this like soft nursing job is working out. And so I went back to serving in a bar. And just being a waitress for a little while. And then the opportunity to came up to me to be able to move to Florida in like a small beach town. And I was like, you know what? I think that's kind of what I need. I need to take some time and some space to just recover and reflect and figure out like where I want to go, because I really was feeling strongly that I didn't want to be a nurse. And not because I don't want to help people, and not because I don't want to be a caregiver, because that's something that I feel like that's who I am at my core. Like I really want to be of service and I want to help, but I just really was like, how can I help people make a living, but just not in this way, like, and not for this in this system, because it just seems like it's not just, my hospital or hospital in Florida or in New York or Missouri or Tennessee. It's kind of everywhere that people are frustrated because so much is put on you as a nurse and it's hard to cope with. And the system doesn't really care about you as the nurse or the patient population. They care so much about making money. And I'm just was like really frustrated by that knowledge. And I'm like, I don't want to work for this broken system. I want to help people, but I can't continue to put my mental and physical health at risk for these companies that don't care about me or the patients that I'm taking care of. And that really was like something that hit home to me, because I'm like, if they don't care, then like, what am I like? I'm like breaking my back and like going home crying because I'm, so like trying to really help these people, and like the system doesn't care. They're like, take this, do this, and it's just been so frustrating. And I know it's not just like my experience. A lot of nurses are frustrated and just like overwhelmed at the ratios, and not even just like, unsafe patient ratios. I mean, nurses are getting assaulted left and right,
Yeah.
and then nurses are getting arrested for making a mistake, but they might not have made that mistake if they had had a safe patient ratio, if they had had the support staff they need, if they had working equipment, if they had the supplies, like if everything was how it was supposed to be, maybe these things wouldn't be happening. But we're getting so burnt out, and I feel like the system relies on our empathetic nature as nurses to not speak up. When you see about nurse protests and stuff, a lot of nurses are like, well, I can't leave my patients. And this,
Hmm.
I feel like the system, and not just like one healthcare system like this or this one, the whole healthcare as a whole really relies on the fact that nurses are not going to stand up and say, we're not okay with this anymore. They're like, well, we have to take care of our patients. And that's how I think a lot of us feel. And I felt like that for a long time. But now I want to be like a voice for people and say, like, it's okay if, maybe we could actually make a change in the healthcare system if nurses would collectively and loudly really speak up about what we're having to go through in our everyday career. Because most people, if you're not in healthcare, don't realize what nurses are put through on a day-to-day basis.